Hello, everyone. Welcome back, or if you're new, welcome. It's been, again, a little bit since my last video. This has been like the crazy busiest holiday season I've had in a while, but what can you do? Unfortunately, when you have family members who are running events, you end up taking a part in those as well. So I haven't had a whole lot of time for reading, and something I did notice about myself, and I don't know if this is like a universal thing or if it's just something that is unique to like me or people like me, is that when I'm highly stressed, I really just don't want to read. I think that's why I usually have one or two slump months during the year. This year has actually been pretty good about that. It usually happens like in June and around this time. But this June had no problem. I was reading Westerns along with everyone else here. Yeah, it's just been like a high stress time. And when I'm stressed, like what I like to do instead of reading, because reading takes I don't know, it just seems to take too much effort, is I like to play board games. So I've been playing a lot of board games, particularly like solo board games are a big thing I like to do, where you're just flicking around pieces like a nervous cat, and like it just tricks your brain into thinking you're accomplishing something. So I've been doing a lot of that and not as much reading, which is not good because I am now hosting a booktube channel. So I haven't been able to watch a lot of booktube either. It's just I couldn't get my mind in that zone. So apologies if I've just fallen off a little bit. I'm trying to get back on track. I think once the holidays are completely over, things will be good. And once the year's over, because I still have to do things like year-end reviews for work and whatnot. And that just takes a lot of, I don't want to say it takes a lot of brain power, but it takes a lot of focus. And then when I'm done, I don't want to like sit and focus on a page. So it is what it is, but I did finish a book that I really wanted to talk about, and that was Star Trek Sarek by A.C. Crispin. And the reason I want to talk about it is because I loved it. I absolutely loved it. This might be a contender for one of my favorite Star Trek books of all time. So this is a story that takes a lot of ancillary characters from the original series of Star Trek and sort of runs with them and expanding them as characters and giving them a life of their own, which is something I wanted to see more of, honestly. Like, whenever you pick up a Star Trek book, because of, marketing and what would actually sell, normally you're getting, like, something with, like, the main cast of characters. Like, so in this era, this is the original series era, it's like you get a lot of Kirk, Spock, McCoy, etc. And while they do make appearances in this book and do have an active role to play, this book takes place sort of after Star Trek VI, which is the final original series Star Trek movie. And it takes a bunch of characters from that and expands on them, and characters from the show that we've seen before. The main character, obviously, is the character of Sarek, who is Spock's father. They have a very contentious history together, and they never quite see eye to eye. And it's nice to have him as like a point of view reference character. They obviously did not get along in the original series. And one of the biggest downsides to this book is it's really for the fans, by the fans. So requisite viewing of various episodes and movies are kind of required to get the most out of this book. So it's not really easy to give as a recommendation for a first Star Trek book. But if you're a really big fan, by all means dive in. It takes place, like I said, after the sixth movie. So Sarek, while being a Vulcan, is a very long-lived race. He lives on to be like another 100 years into the next generation era. But unfortunately, he is married to a human woman who has a normal human lifespan. And his wife falls ill at the beginning of this book, and we get to see a very slow decline of Spock's mother and Sarek's wife. And it's kind of rough, but very accurate, I want to say, to the experience if you've ever had a loved one who's just lingered and had a slow death, where it's just like that tension that builds. Obviously, because Spock and Sarek, they have reconciled quite a bit since in the original series, but there's still tensions there, and this just elevates the tensions. And you wouldn't think that that wouldn't be a big deal for Vulcans who, like, supposedly have their emotions under control. But now that we get to see inside more Vulcans other than just Spock's point of view, which I really liked, you get to see, like, the control is still just controlling the emotions. It's not the same as not having emotions. You're not talking about, like, Data from Star Trek The Next Generation. So the book gets in the head of Sarek and gets to see, like, the conflict arising within him, because Vulcan emotions are very strong, and so, like, he isn't able to 100% maintain control of them. And that's actually maybe even foreshadowing into the Next Generation, where Sarek develops a disease where he is unable to control those emotions and they start leaking out. I don't know if this is meant to be sort of inspired by that. I don't think so, but, like, it kind of works within the canon of Star Trek anyway. But Sarek is dealing with a diplomatic situation at the same time, where there's this group of speciesist, a group that wants to keep Earth human. I can't remember the acronym for the League, but they're starting to gain popularity after the events of Star Trek VI, which they used to be, like, considered like a fringe group of nutbags who, like, no one paid any mind to, and then they sort of started growing in numbers, and they were, like, surrounding the Vulcan embassy, and Sarek goes out to defuse the situation, and by coming in contact with one of the leaders, discovers, oh, this person's under a psychic influence. Things progress from there, so he's dealing with, like, his suspicions. There's an alien race that is very mysterious, who isn't a part of the Federation, but they are very closely aligned with the Federation, and Sarek has diplomatic ties with them, and discovers that this might actually be, like, a Romulan conspiracy coming in. They don't really know why. At the same time, the Klingons are also getting riled up. They have a new Chancellor, who, in Star Trek VI, Gorkin, I think his name was murdered, and he was succeeded by his daughter. And in this Star Trek canon of this novel, the Klingons are very misogynistic, so they do not want to follow women, and something seems to be riling up them where they start, like, having, like, their alliances start fracturing within the Klingon Empire. There's a bunch of renegades who are going out and just attacking colonies because they don't want to follow a woman, and so something is flaring up their emotions, much like that's happening on Earth. And could they be related? So Sarek is going to investigate that. Unfortunately, it's, like, in a crisis situation where he has to, like, also diplomatically, like, stop these Klingons from murdering these colonists. He's requested by the president of the Federation to mediate while his wife is dying. So he goes off and starts, doing his duty, even though he knows he probably will not see his wife again. And Spock is not having any of it. Spock is really a loose cannon in this. But it's nice, in a lot of older Star Trek novels, Spock, like, breaks his control and just goes nuts. Even actually in the J.J. Abrams movies, Spock is just, like, turns into this rage death machine. That's not quite how it's done here, and I think it's done a little bit more elegantly here, where he is still, like, in control of what he does, but his emotions are, like, breaking through his control in a way where he's not just like, "Khan!" and running around and, like, duking it out with people, but, like, it's just like he's cracking, and his relationship with his father is just it's hard to explain, but it's more subtle, and I think it's more real to Spock as a character as opposed to these other depictions where he just flies off the handle and into, like, this sexy god of death on the battlefield. So this was a really good book. There's another main character in this book who I've heard a little bit of criticism about. It's Peter Kirk, who is Captain James T. Kirk's nephew. We get to see him on Earth as he's seeing like this racist league rise up, and he starts trying to infiltrate their ranks, gets kidnapped, and somehow ends up in custody of the Klingons. Peter Kirk is fine as a character. I think he's a little generic Federation guy, but things do happen that are very interesting in his story, and I actually do appreciate it. He is like torn between like following in his uncle's footsteps. This was a character that was introduced also in the show as a kid in Operation Annihilate, where his family is murdered and he's like the sole survivor of the Kirk clan. And so like Captain James T. Kirk is like his only role model. So he is torn between doing that and following a more diplomatic course, like by not being like a Federation captain, but just being a diplomat. And he idolizes a Sarek. And so things converge. I'm not going to just run through the whole novel, but one thing I really liked was just seeing the ancillary characters shine. It makes the Star Trek world feel a little more lived in, and the story was really good. I didn't have any major criticisms about it, other than things may have ended a little more happily than I would have liked. At the same time, it has really dark moments. What is Sarek's wife's name? I'm drawing a blank, but she does end up passing away midway through the book, which I thought would be drawn out even further, but like it happens midway through the book, and then Sarek has her journals and is going through like their whole relationship, and it's really nice. This book I listened to an audiobook because like I just needed something to do while I was doing chores and driving, and it was a really good audiobook. It was, I believe, read by the actor who played Sarek. So it was nice to see him. Like, he was very good at doing all these other characters as well. I also have it digitally. I was surprised to find I don't have a physical copy of it. But since I have it digitally, it counts for the Read What You Own challenge. Its number, I don't know. If I have time to edit, I will put it here or here. But it was really good book. If you are a Star Trek fan, I highly recommend it. If you aren't a Star Trek fan, this won't do much for you. So go out and become a Star Trek fan, watch all the shows and all the movies, and then come to this book, and you'll have a good time with it, hopefully. So I just really loved it. And I also discovered this is like the 99th book I've read this year. So I'm closing in on 100. And so therefore I have to finish 100 books. I did a video a while back about like, people criticizing those who have read 100 books and, maybe they're not reading deeply enough or whatever. There was a lot of criticism towards people who do that, but I've never actually hit 100 books in a year. So this will be the first if I do this. I think my biggest, I think 70 was where I capped out most other years, or around that number. So I'm going to get through 100 books this year, so I'm putting everything else aside, and I'm not reading like just something small, hopefully, unless I get into a desperate spot. So the book I'm currently reading is, and going to finish out the year with, is one of Otto Penzler's big books. This is the big book of Christmas mysteries. And one thing, mysteries are not my genre normally, so I didn't really know what to expect, and I've discovered that in this, that the definition of mystery is actually pretty broad, which I wasn't expecting. I was expecting like, locked room murder mysteries or whatever, and there are some of those, but sometimes the mystery is not so much about the mystery, but there's like an element. I think a better way to say this is mysteries I'm discovering, are kind of like jokes, where you have the setup and then eventually you get the punchline at the end. And that structure largely holds true for the stories I've read so far in this. It's very formulaic, but like they find fun ways to circumvent the formula, if that makes sense. One of my favorite stories in this is called "The Proof in the Pudding," or "The Proof of the Pudding" by Peter Lovesley, and this is mainly just like a story about domestic abuse and his wife and child right after World War II. where her husband comes home and he is just abusive and obviously having affairs and whatnot, and just the constant toll this is having during this particular Christmas on this family. And there's no mysterious element throughout most of the book until the very end, where something happens and the father figure gets tricked. And I'm not going to ruin it because it's a really good story. But like, things click together and you do get that punchline at the end. So it's enjoyable. I don't know. I don't think all of the stories here are bangers. They're not all winners, but again, this is not my genre, so I'm just exploring, and I'm enjoying the process of doing that. I want to get all of Otto Penzler's big books. I have quite a few, but this is sort of opening my eyes to other types of storytelling that I'm just not used to, and they're all bite size. I'm only trying to like push through this one really quickly because it's kind of seasonal, and I just want to get into the Christmas spirit that I have not been feeling this year. But at the same time, the Christmas spirit involves murders and thefts and whatnot. So it's a little like it's a good book for me right now. So I'm enjoying that, and that hopefully will get me to 100 books this year. For the Read What You Own challenge, again, I don't know what number I'm on, but like as soon as I started doing that challenge, like I started getting like the chunkiest books I could find. So I'm nowhere near where like other booktubers are at the moment, but that's okay because I'm enjoying myself. And I have not really felt the urge to buy books. Now, I am of the mindset where I am a collector, so I've been buying other things in place of books and not feeling the urge to buy books. So the problem is me, but at least I'm not buying books or drugs or anything like that. So that's a win. Anyway, I do want to talk to you again, hopefully before Christmas. But if I don't see you, have a Merry Christmas or a Happy Christmas, or whatever holiday you want to celebrate, if any. If not, have a good Tuesday. And I will talk to you later. All right, bye.